Farlost, created by John Miro. 20. Nothing! Sam slammed his right arm against the wall. The wall obliged him with a fist-sized dent. The impact was still echoing when the elevator doors opened onto the bridge. Doug and Wish were silent as he stormed to his seat. He sat hard, staring angrily at the close-up of the miserly space hulk floating in the holo. He watched the sled slide quickly across the cable back to the hulk, its expansive cargo hold opening to the vacuum, the useless load tumbling away with the gases, and below it, barely visible, the powerful searchlights of his crew continued to scour the hulk. 4 runs. They'd each taken a turn mothering the small sled that rode the cable from the harpoon embedded in the hulk's side back to the Betty, while the others kept searching for more promising scrap. All 4 times they arrived at the open belly of the cargo hold, the more sensitive sensors mounted on the ship declared the scrap they'd painstakingly hauled across the wire was worthless. He looked at the time counter hovering beside his chair. 41 hours had passed. Below that, another time counted down. At best, they could keep the hulk from sinking back into the Thorn's gravity well for 4 more hours before they redlined on fuel and wouldn't be able to make it back to anywhere. Sam Travis's skin itched. He couldn't remember the last time he and his crew spent 2 whole days sitting still. Bad things happened, and bad people caught up with you when you stayed in one place too long. And nothing good had come out of sitting still yet either. All right, kids, start scanning a new section of the ship, each of you. Get creative, sniff all over, but stay in visual range of each other at all times. It's been a shitload of days since our last accident, folks. Let's keep it that way. Meantime, I'm going to see if Aerie can tell us anything more about this ship. Now he was throwing good money after bad, bartering more data he could hold on to for... Who was he kidding? It wasn't just a rainy day. There was hail coming down on their heads right now. And locusts. And frogs. Behind him, Wish's 2-pronged tail tapped through the same probe data First Officer Doug and Engineer Ben had already sifted. Travis appreciated the effort. Many digits make light work, and maybe saves everyone's ass. He slumped back into his chair, letting the air burst from his lungs in an exasperated sigh. How was he going to keep the Betty flying without a haul, even an anemic one, to trade for the necessities? 7 years was a good run, he thought. Then he got angry and smashed his skin and bone fist against the chair arm. It hurt, and it pissed him off, which was the point, a fitting punishment for the thought. Giving up wasn't an option. He had people depending on him. There was always a way if you could just hold on long enough. That's what life was, he schooled himself. Ben, there's got to be something we missed. If not the metal, then... There's nothing left over there but the metal, Cap, Ben interrupted, and the last of the juiciest outer alloy layers were nibbled off decades ago. Sam stared at the massive holo. Can we carve pieces off to sell? I know there's plenty of mines in system, but not a lot of refined metals like... Alarms shrieked around the bridge. Sam jerked upright, feeling fine strands of restraint fiber cross his chest and thighs. He waved up an emergency diagram of the ship. No dangers visible there. He called up a long-range view behind the Betty. Had someone snuck up on them? Nothing there either. Why were alarms going off on his ship? Somebody talk to me. Shockwave incoming, Daisy called out, voice amplified but as calm as ever. Gruber's voice lacked calm, but had plenty of amplification. Shit, boss! Huge levels of energy are coming up from the Thorn. Sam froze, for only a moment, taking in what that could mean. Then he eyed the timer in the holotank, now displaying a rapidly expanding white sphere of light down deep in the Thorn's shatter zone. Daisy, get all the way in front of that hulk before that shockwave gets here. Broadcast on all channels. All hands, you've got 8 minutes to get to the cable line and haul ass to the Betty. Arrival incoming. I repeat, arrival. Yes, you heard right. Now move it. Spend all thrust and get your asses back here, ASAFP. Then came the waiting. Long minutes of waiting. Sam? Yeah, Ben. You ever think you'd get to see one of these? Sam laughed. Right now I'm just busy hoping all of us survive it. I hear you, Ben whispered. Sam heard the awe in his engineer's voice. He would have shared it if he wasn't too busy monitoring the vitals in all his crew's suits. Hurry it up, you assholes, he whispered as he watched his crew blaze back to the sled and redline its engine back toward the Betty in the last seconds before the shockwave hit. Time was up before the sled made it all the way back. Travis's vision narrowed into a slit of white, brilliant white seeping in through the window, searing into his brain. The skin of the Betty groaned, and her captain struggled to hold on to consciousness. He slid his hands up into his chair's arm-mounted hollow and gestured it to black out the windows. The glare was cut barely in half. He stared into the hollow, trusting his eyes to the computer recreation instead of the raw view outside. Just past the edge of the hulk, down deep in the grip of the thorn, he saw the ball of expanding white energy rising to meet them. His ship began to shake and roar around him. Travis held on with his flesh-and-blood hand as well as the replacement one. He was savaged by twin hammers of gravity and acceleration despite the ship's efforts to counter the fantastic forces, lest everyone on board coat the walls with a paint made of their own smashed cells. He watched the crushed, looted wreck blot out the white wave on the hollow. He watched light stab through cracks in the hull of the space junk, blurring out of focus as the shockwave tore it apart and sent the pieces streaking toward his ship. Then he froze in his chair, head half turned away from the hollow in instinctual terror, and half caught by what he saw between the shards of the hulk. The Eternal, the white ship of legend, no longer trapped down deep, no longer out of reach. The fabled treasure of so many hunters, now hurtled up, ejected from the shatter zone by the same shockwave that was about to hammer the Betty. 2 miracles today, Travis thought. The white light was a sight few ever saw firsthand. He certainly never thought he'd have front-row seats to an arrival, let alone live to see one. The world roared around him, and Sam's eyeballs almost shook out of his head as the first pieces of the hulk smashed into the Betty. The world was about to be changed again, and with it, the fortunes of Travis and his crew. That is, if the miracles didn't kill them all first. Farlost. Music by Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com. Learn more at servingworlds.com. Hi, this is John Miro. If you're enjoying Farlost, please consider visiting patreon.com, patreon.com/servingworlds, and lend your support. Be a patron of my fiction. Thank you.